Hey, y'all. Today's guest is Joe Courtney. He's a pastor, author, and the man behind the book, Dead Man Manifesto and Dead Man Revival, a book that basically says if you want to live with purpose, you got to bury the version of yourself that's been faking it. We talk legacy, brotherhood, calling, and what happens when God breaks you down to build you up. It's honest, it's heavy, and it's going to have some laughs too. So let's give a warm jabroni welcome to my friend Joe Courtney.
Yeah.
Joe in the house.
Joe's
Great to be here, guys. Thanks.
What the hell do I know? I'm just JB, middle-aged dad with ADD. Candid combos, jokes so lame, jabronis pulling a poker face. Just a couple of dudes with ADD. What the hell do I know? With JB.
Chill.
It's been a while.
So good to have you back,
thank
Juice,
you,
to be
thank
able
you.
to do that, man.
Yeah, it was nice to be away for that long.
I know.
Very nice.
We have decided we've got the Juice on a couch coming this Christmas for $29.95.
Yep.
You saw
Nobody's going
It's
to
a
buy that.
large
Yeah.
winged elf-like creature.
Yeah, I would not do that. I do not
gonna hit the
recommend
show.
selling those.
Not going to recommend it
at all.
But wait, did you see it on Nate's
I
episode?
did watch it, yeah.
You did watch it, and you saw the
Stand-in?
substitute for you.
Yeah, I
the
mean, what the hell,
stand-in?
Santa Claus?
Well, it was the only thing I found with the gray beard.
I guess. Yeah.
Your beard game's looking really solid.
Thank you. Yeah,
It
it's,
really is.
I dye it white.
I-
All my hair, it's all dyed
It's-
white.
You dye it. You dye it
Normally,
white.
it's still black. Yeah.
You dye that.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm 34.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, before we get too far, and I'm so excited to have you here, Joe, and so Juice, I mentioned we kind of did a little prayer before we started the pod, but he had a death in the family. His mother-in-law passed away, and I think she had a lot of health stuff going on, and so we're certain she's in a better place, as we know, in the hope that we have as believers in Jesus. But I know that's been tough on Juice, and he's at work, and his wife's been it's tough on her and his family, and so there were a couple episodes that he missed, and I had to substitute Santa Claus in his place.
I heard he did better. Yeah. I heard he was lights
He
out.
has so many better questions.
Yeah. Man.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's a sharp little guy.
So that was good. But at any rate, welcome to the Floors.com studio. Floors.com is your one-stop shop for your next flooring or wall covering or remodel and new build. That's Floors, FLOOR.
Double Z.
.com, baby. 2 Z's, baby. Floors.com, right? Government
Still
ID.
5% off. Yeah.
Still 5% off, folks. I
Get your deal.
I mean, if you want bamboo floors, it's the only place to go. If you want LVP, only place to go. You want real wood.
Yeah.
You want tile.
Anybody
Outdoor,
with
dude.
carpet,
Outdoor
if
stuff
there's
now.
Outdoor
carpet
stuff. They got
in
it's
your
whatever
bathroom
you want,
still,
man.
if there's carpet in your bathroom, you got to get some LVP. Get the carpet out of the bathroom. That's a
that's
trend
right.
that should have never caught on. If you got carpet in the bathroom, you need to call these boys over here at Floors.com. For real. Get the carpet out of the bathroom. What's that about?
Good call, man.
Golly.
What a great call.
It's over.
No carpet in the
No
bathroom.
carpet
If you got
ever.
carpet in your bathroom,
It's time.
it's time.
Time to make a call.
Floors.com. We are not even stylists here, but we know that's not in style.
It's not.
It's past. What would you say? I went to here's something, and I'm going to tell your dad. Does your dad watch this show any?
I don't know if Dad watches
probably
any
doesn't watch it.
podcasts.
Good. So then
Yeah.
we're safe.
We're safe with Dennis.
safe here.
Do they have
Hey, shout
internet
out,
in
Dad.
Indiana, though?
They have
Oh.
interwebs.
They had
Okay,
internet.
I got
I
you.
went to his dad's house, and we went to go hunting. He's like, "We'll stay with my dad a couple days." We walk in this house. I swear to you, it was like walking back in the 1970s.
Yeah, man.
He has a blue toilet
gray.
Hell yeah.
Grayish blue.
and a blue like tub insert deal.
Yeah, matching.
And there's carpet on the
Is
floor.
the
right?
trim's gotta be gold.
Is it the
no, they use
linoleum?
Linoleum.
baby.
It's not LVP yet. But man, let me tell you why that stuff's paid for.
Yeah.
That's paid for.
That's
that
hard
sounds
work. Yeah,
awesome.
his dad's hard work, man.
Hard work,
He
yeah.
built that house by hand and
did.
had an Amish barn out there. Honestly,
did.
it's beautiful property.
It is.
But that dang blue toilet,
That's the side. I think there's a
got me.
gray one, a blue one.
that got
Yeah.
me. That
They
was
match
so good.
the shower.
That
Yeah,
was so good.
back in the day.
Well, Joe, we're going to dive into your story. I wanted to introduce. I know, it's
Joe,
so,
come on, blue toilet.
Come on,
Joe.
Joe's on the show.
Such a
How do we
perfect
say
segue.
the
This is a $10 podcast.
Joe's like,
so I
what
go
are-
from blue
who are
toilets
these
to
people?
Joe Courtney.
Checks out. Yeah. Checks out.
I love it. But I just figure, this is dads with ADD. I mean, we don't know what we're
All
doing
over
here
the
all the
place.
time.
You're like
but,
a firecracker.
Hey, man,
Yeah.
I fit right in.
Yeah, you fit right in, right? That's right. You're from the 1900s.
I'm also from the 1900s.
Dang.
That's right.
Yeah, 1900 dad.
Doesn't that make you feel old when you say that?
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like when I think about it, I feel like certain things are just like a decade old, you know. But then you realize like kids today wouldn't know what a tape player is.
No.
No
right?
way.
Rotary
No.
phone. You remember?
I remember
you were
we
around
had,
rotary phones, right?
we had a beige rotary phone.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they sold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and yellow.
Oh, yeah, yellow or beige.
Yeah.
2 choices.
That's right.
Did
Yeah.
your cord go like through 4 rooms in your house? I mean, could you stretch it out? You remember like where?
Or you were one of the ones with the antenna would pop out, and you'd have the long antenna.
Never
Remember
had,
that phase?
Zach
never had
Morris?
the popping antenna.
Yeah.
You know, I was about 13 and I bought my own phone cord so it would stretch from my
Yep.
parents' room to my room so I could shut the door.
All right.
That's-
So you
yeah.
know.
Awesome.
You
But
know.
it was on a short tether before that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
did you have call waiting? Remember that kicked in?
Yeah,
Sometime in the
my
90s.
my
I feel
fancy
like it was
friends had call waiting.
fancy friends.
Yeah,
I love
you
it.
had to
We
pay
never
for
had
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like $10 a month.
Danielle's parents ran a business. My wife, and she's in the control room. I got to give her a shout out because I mean,
The control room,
people know I produce some other pods, but really, they really want Danielle to do it because she produces ours. She's so
Yeah.
good. She's behind in the control room doing
Yeah.
it. But her parents ran their business out of their basement, so she had 2 phone lines.
Wow.
Dude, they were
Mafia.
Boston.
That was
Two
mafia.
phone
Yeah.
lines.
Wow.
You call me here. You call
I
me
went over
there.
there. I was
What?
like, do I call your work phone or your house phone? I mean,
Crazy.
yeah, she
Yeah.
grew up.
You had
she
to
grew
remember
up.
2 numbers.
I was
Holy moly.
I was on the other side of the tracks.
Yeah.
Okay, do you guys remember we used to remember numbers, like phone numbers?
Yeah.
I don't
Yes.
even know my kids, and that's honest truth.
No, same.
I
No,
don't
fair.
even know.
That's
Where
fair,
did that
Brandon.
part of the brain go that captured all those numbers? It's gone.
It went
we
to
don't remember it anymore.
It went to AI.
It went
Yeah,
to
it went to
AI.
other stuff,
It's like
yeah.
it's already happening. Like
It's
we're
already-
remembering less, but I knew like 20 numbers, grandparents, neighbors. Not anymore. I don't even know my kids.
It's so
That's
crazy.
weird.
I wonder if the audience is listening right now. I'd love for you to comment. What were some of the things you remember from the 1900s that you miss?
I don't miss it.
I don't know. I don't know that I miss anything. I mean, there's a slower pace that I miss.
Yeah, that I miss.
I mean, I think I miss some of the pace for sure, right?
Yeah, for certain.
I mean, when you go out after dark and your mom would just yell at you, it's like, come in before dark, right?
was
great.
Come in at sunset. You just
Street lights come on.
when the street lights
Yeah.
come on. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, you watch movies from the 80s and 90s, and everybody's outside in the yard
We were.
at sunset or whatever because there's no internet.
Dude, I grabbed
no
I grabbed a
phones.
skateboard.
Yeah, everybody
and
was outside.
ran,
yeah.
and it was just come back.
Was
when
it?
the street
Didn't they
lights came
actually
on.
Yeah,
tell our
that was it.
parents like, "Hey, your kids may be still outside." Like, "Hey, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are?" I mean, they would. The news would tell you, "Go find your kids."
Yeah.
I just find my iPhone now.
Yeah, now you just track them.
Yeah.
Well, I can remember when our first son was born, 2004, and I was thinking, wouldn't it be a great invention? Because you, as an early parent, I've never worried about anybody being kidnapped in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have your first child, it's like all of a sudden kidnapping becomes an issue.
No, it's
Right,
number one
right,
priority,
right,
dude.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so you think like, wouldn't it be cool to have something in the shoe that would track your kid? Mm-hmm. I mean, like they have AirTags now.
Right.
They do.
You could literally put an AirTag in any shoe.
That's right.
And track your kid.
Yep.
And think about like the kids in the store. You could hit a button and be like play music and know where your kid is in any store today. You never.
True.
It's crazy.
We're connected.
We're connected.
We're really connected.
Yeah.
We're connected.
We're on a leash.
We're on a
We
leash.
need to be leashed back in.
and
We're
they're,
on
and
tangents
they're
all over.
watching you.
actually, we're so connected, Brandon, that we all wore black today.
So I'm
And
looking
you
at
just
the
wore
memo,
white, yeah.
and I'm going through the notes for today's show, and I saw nothing that said black
Well, there's
shirts.
no notes. I mean, you just should have known.
just
Should've
should've known.
This was
Yeah.
just
Intuitive.
You guys all look great in
intuition.
your black
Thank you.
shirts, by the way.
Intuition.
Thank you.
We got black,
Unbelievable.
navy
I
stripes.
mean,
Yeah.
They were.
jailhouse.
Juice went with
stripes.
Juice went with the 2000 V-neck.
Yeah, 2000.
Classic.
He went in the 2000.
Yeah, very worship leader 2000.
Yes.
worship leader.
Yeah, all my
Yeah.
dyed white hairs and my beard's falling off on the
You sure that's not dandruff?
Yeah, it's not, definitely dangerous.
I'll get you some Head and Shoulders, there, buddy.
Some beard, head, and shoulders. Yeah,
Yeah, you need that. But I have something that's called. I think it's called beer.
I got a beard
it's
cleaner
beard
thing.
oil. It's like
I'm
a
bad
beard,
about putting
it's like
it on,
a beard
yeah.
oil because
Yeah.
my skin will dry out too.
Yeah.
So it's a real thing, Juice. I got it.
It
But now
is.
back to the show. We're gonna now play. What the hell do I know,
Oh.
Mr. Joe Courtney?
Come on, Joe.
So
you
here
got
it is.
this.
7
You got
questions.
this.
7 questions, rapid succession, No wrong answers, no gotcha questions. You can pass
Okay.
if you need to.
All right.
All right, so we're going to put clock on. Here it goes. And number 1, if animals could talk, which one would be the biggest jerk?
Oh, man. If animals could talk, which one would be the biggest jerk? It's going to be the house cat.
Come on.
It is.
Number 2, what's one thing you absolutely refuse to share? Kind of agree with him on the cat. I got a cat.
Yeah.
Kind of agree. What's one thing you absolutely refuse to share?
I don't share my beer with my children.
Okay.
Hey, that's
Fair.
actually
That's
a
fair.
really wise
Fair.
choice.
That's a good choice, actually.
All right.
I
Yeah.
think it's also legal.
wisdom. Yeah.
Wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 3, if you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, you know what? Brick oven pizza.
Ooh, that's a good
Nice.
answer,
That's a good
yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
Number 4, what's your favorite curse word substitute? Brandon's got one.
I got all kinds.
I know.
Well,
Like, gosh darn it.
it's one I still get in trouble with when
Do
I
you
say it in
really?
front of my mom. But it's a whole like run on. It's
Yeah.
Father mucking clucking piece of freaking chicken.
I like that.
That would be right along the
Yeah.
lines with money. That would be
will
so
be
good. That's so
used
good.
by me.
Yes, it will be. Number 5, what's the most useless talent you have?
Man.
You can pass if you need to. We can come back to it.
Well, there's just so many.
That's a tough
That was
question.
a good one. That was a tough one. I thought
Yeah.
it might be. All right, let's pass. All right, number 6. What's your guilty pleasure TV show?
You know what? I want to pass,
please be
but I won't.
Housewives.
I won't. So I got into the show with my wife.
Yeah. No,
You
no,
ever watch
it's
that?
how it
You ever
starts.
watch? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It starts and it's a
Yeah.
slippery
It
slope.
is. It
Now
gets
I'm
in there.
watching all kinds of reality
That's right.
television.
Oh, no,
it's
reality.
It's Farmer Wants a Wife.
Oh, yes.
I haven't seen that one.
Yes, I haven't
Farmer
seen it, but I got to
Wants-
watch
You
it
gotta
now.
watch it.
I got to watch
It's good. It's good. And the
I'm gonna tell
Australian
you my-
episodes are even
Farmer
better than
does
the
want
US
a wife.
episodes.
I'm going to tell you my trick on.
right.
I'm going
They
to tell
need
you
to
my
get
trick on these. It makes it better. Number 7. What's your zombie apocalypse survival role?
I see myself as being an architect.
Very nice, very nice. And you are now off the hot seat.
All
Let's
right,
give
all
him an
right,
applause.
all right.
Absolutely.
We got to
Way
get number
go,
5,
way to
though. We
go.
got to get the answer.
Way to go. Way
back to it.
What's the most useless talent? We kind of
Yeah.
did pass there, but what do
What
you
is
have?
it? You
Like, what
got
would you
one?
say
You
your
said you had
most
a lot.
useless talent is?
Well, there's a language. There's a secret language
Okay.
that I can speak. It's called the language of Ob. Have you heard of this?
I've never heard of
The
it.
language of Ob, and this
Is
is
something you made up with like one of your siblings? or
Yeah,
something?
well, I made it up. It was a language that only the guys would speak at my first job. I was a dishwasher.
Come
so all
on,
those dishwashers, we
yes.
had this language of
In
Ob.
Philly?
Yeah, in Philly, back
Okay.
in Philly. So you put Ob before every pronounced vowel sound.
That is
So
a useless talent.
It is useless.
Do you still have the ability to do that?
I think
now?
so. Let me see
Let's
if I can
you
still
go.
speak it.
All right, come on.
My name, Joe Courtney, would be Jabo Kabort Nabi.
All right.
That fun?
That's a lot of fun.
I love it.
Yeah.
I
That's
love
a
it.
lot
There
of
you go.
fun.
That would be a useless talent.
So why
I
would
used
a
to be fluent.
dishwasher need a secret code?
Oh, it was,
Something to do when you're bored.
teenage
man, for sure.
chauvinism. You
Okay,
know,
that
it's
makes
like we
sense.
can speak
I
a
thought maybe
language
there
that
was
girls
like
don't
a-
understand.
Yeah, I get.
Oh,
I thought it wasn't
yeah,
a dishwasher.
yeah.
It was just like
Good call.
me and the boys are going to come up with something.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's awesome.
That's not. That's
Camaraderie.
totally useful. I would like to use that. Yeah.
Well, what I want to tell you about reality, Danielle and I watch a lot of reality television. It's ridiculous, and so like all the Housewives, Bravo,
Oh,
all that
man,
stuff.
don't be telling people
But
this.
here's the thing.
Survivor.
Here's the thing. If you're watching it with your wife, what I would encourage you to do is have it on DVR. And what we do a lot is we pause. Like every time there's some episode, we pause and we're like, that is the most unhealthy way to handle that situation. And we talk about what's a healthier
Oh,
way
man.
to handle that situation. And so I actually think we're bettering our relationship
Through
by
reality television.
Through reality television.
Yeah.
So there
That's
you
the
go.
way to use it.
That's the way to use it. That's the way to use it for good.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, driving right along, this is a perfect time for me to tell you, though, about True North Pest Control. True North Pest Control is all over Georgia, Central Florida, and here at the Emerald Coast. And, man, they will take care of you and get rid of all them critters, all them bugs. Brandon, what do they get rid of?
Everything that walks dies.
Oh, man. Jeez.
I mean, humans are okay.
Humans. But guess what? You pay your mortgage. They don't. So get them out of your house.
Get them out of your house.
Why do you even need mosquitoes in your backyard?
This is
People are like, we
dangerous.
live in Florida. They actually have a solution for that. Your neighbors don't get that solution. You get that solution.
Yeah, so
Right?
check them out. That's right. TrueNorthPest.com. Check them out. They'll take care of you. They are your pest control superheroes.
I like that.
I like that too.
I like that.
There you go. So back to the show. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about just you've got this book. I had a chance to sit down and go through it, the Dead Man Manifesto.
Yeah.
And you kind of came up with that. Where does that come from? What made you start thinking about writing a book and getting into it and get a picture and draw it out? Like I always am fascinated by anybody that can write a book.
Yeah. Well, it's I graduated from Bible college back in 2005. And it's amazing. Bible college graduates know everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes
Typically.
It takes like another couple decades to forget it all and realize you don't know that much.
Right.
So there's a lot.
I think that goes for a lot of college students in general, too.
Right? Yeah. I know everything now, Dad.
that's
Okay,
right.
son. Now I call him, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But so there's a lot of unfinished manuscripts. The thing about a lot of the unfinished books that I've tried to write in the past are they revolve around things that I thought that I knew. Whereas Dead Man Manifesto was really written out of a more desperate place in my life where I realized there was a lot of things that I didn't know, a lot of things, especially being a man in midlife. You're asking, I call it second adolescence. You're asking all the same questions or similar questions. I'm not the man I thought I'd be by now. I didn't accomplish all the things I thought I'd accomplish by now. Who am I? And how am I going to use the time I have left to do something that matters? So a lot of it was born out of those questions and that wrestle as a man in midlife.
Right.
And then Galatians 2:20 says, I've been crucified with Christ.
Right.
Therefore, I no longer live. Christ now lives in me. The life I now live, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. So what does it look like to live the dead man life? What does it look like to live the surrendered life where I don't need all the answers, I need to surrender?
Very good, man. I love
like
that.
that.
Now, what? So honestly, I should probably step back a little bit. Like, where did you? Because I mean, I have a lot of different questions here, but I want to step back though. What was your first experience in knowing like Jesus? Because that's going to be younger. Because you're in Bible college, but then you're probably going younger than that, right?
Yeah.
What was your experience that you came into your faith?
I was really blessed, man. I grew up in a Bible believing home. My parents got saved in the Jesus Revolution back in the late 60s, early 70s. Have you guys seen that movie?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus
Great
Revolution.
movie.
Yeah, it's a
really
great
movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. And that's the reality that my folks lived. There was a whole movement in California, and there was an East Coast movement. They were part of that. And I'll never forget as a kid, experiencing the living room environments where they're Pentecostal two-stepping with their friends and playing their Maranatha songs, all, granola hippie people, all just worshiping the Lord. And so those are some of my earliest experiences. And I kid you not, I prayed with Pat Robertson on the 700 Club. You remember that?
Come on, yes.
I was like 7 years old. I was like, all right, I ran into my bedroom and I prayed that prayer. But it wasn't until I actually spent...
I love that story, by the way.
Great story.
I mean, I really love that story because you think, like, is anybody listening? Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And he always said amen twice. You guys ever watch that show?
I mean,
been a while, yeah. I have to go back and
I've
watch it.
seen
We're
it.
from the 1900s.
Yeah.
We don't have to-
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I remember when he ran for president. So
Yeah,
That's right. I remember that. Yeah. My
That's
grandma
right.
always had it on. Always.
That's
Yeah.
right. And didn't he get in trouble for claiming he could squat like 1,000 pounds when he was like 87 years old?
So I wasn't that deep in Pat
Yeah.
Robertson.
So this is Pat Robertson nostalgia here. So. All right.
Great.
But
Is
yeah,
he still-
man.
he is past, right?
Yeah, he's-
I mean, because I feel like even like 5 years ago he was alive, though, right? It's not that long.
Yeah, it
ago.
hasn't been that long.
That's what I was going to say. It hasn't been that long. I mean,
Yeah.
and he stayed on TV for a long,
Probably
Remember the
longer than he
Y2K?
should
longer
have.
than he
but-
should have, for sure.
Remember the Y2K kind of scare?
Yes.
I remember, like-
yes.
He was big about that. And
He was big about that.
Yeah.
He was also big about, like, if you buy things at a thrift store and you bring them home, they might have demons on them. So,
Yeah.
you
There's a
you
little
eat the
bit
meat,
of-
you spit out the bones. But
Yeah.
That's right.
There you
That's
go.
a
There
good
you
way to
go.
play it.
I
he
like
led me
that.
in that sinner's prayer,
I always say,
Right.
take the good, leave the bad, but I love eat
Yeah.
the meat, spit out the bones.
There
That's
you go.
great.
I like
There you go. So, but the whole experience that I had growing up was very, man, you could call it climbing the spiritual ladder.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there were certain things that I had to do to be good enough for God, to get God's attention and to win his affection. So I get a couple years deep into Bible college and I have absolute spiritual burnout. So
what Bible college did you go to?
I went to a little school called Elam Bible College in Lima, New York.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, most people haven't. It was 400 students at the time.
wow, yeah.
You know, little place. But the Lord got a hold of my life in that season, facing that deep spiritual burnout. And I call it my grace conversion. There was 2 scriptures that jumped out to me. It was Ephesians 2:8. It says, it's by grace you've been saved. It's not by works. We don't have any room to boast. It's a gift of God.
Yeah.
And I thought that this whole time I'm trying to earn my salvation. And in this constant state of fear, I could lose it.
How many times did you say the sinner's prayer?
Oh man, but that's the thing.
Yeah.
Dozens of times.
Right.
Because you're like, man, did it really take?
I was probably like my mid-30s before I stopped saying the sinner's prayer.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then you're good for a while and then you end up screwing up and you feel like you fall back down to the bottom of the ladder.
Yeah, you
Right.
can't, and you gotta be perfect.
Yeah, you got
You
to
have
be
to be
perfect.
perfect.
Right.
You cannot not be perfect.
Everybody's watching. Everybody's watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so it's not until Ephesians 2:10 where it says that we've been created in Christ Jesus for good works he prepared for us ahead of time. But first you're saved by grace, not your work. And then he gives you the good work to do.
We start realizing at some point you start realizing that when you think that you have to do things right, you start realizing that you're cheapening the cross. You're cheapening the sacrifice that Jesus did on the cross. When you think for 1 second there's something you can do, turn it. You really didn't earn it at all. It's given to you free.
Yeah.
And that takes a long. For me, it took a long time. I think it's just some bad theology. I should have eaten the meat and spit out the bones on. You know? So for sure, but it definitely sits there. I love the story. You know, my parents went to, they weren't part of the hippie movement, but they went to Bob Jones University. So it was a totally different
BJU.
It's totally strict movement. I
Yeah,
wish
it
it was the
is.
hippie movement.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you the big, the title itself, Dead Man Revival, hints at dying before you can really live. What was your own moment of realization when you knew the old Joe had to die for the new Joe to actually lead?
That's a great question. There's a series of experiences, right? It says in Mark 1:15, Jesus says, when he invites people to experience the kingdom of God, he says, the time has come. That word time is kairos. It just presents a unique opportunity where a door is open to experience something different you'd never experienced before. And so there's all these experiences in our lives that are like those kairos moments. They're those unique God intersecting opportunities to go deeper and to learn if we'll pay attention to the lesson. So one of the most recent experiences I had, that was that kairos moment. And they can be good or bad. They're never neutral. This one was really tough. 2 years ago, my daughter Bree was born with spina bifida. And only 3,000 children a year are born with spina bifida. Keyword there is born. I think it's 6,000 children a year are actually diagnosed with it.
In utero?
And half of them, the script goes like this. They'll have a poor quality of life. There's no cure. We recommend termination. And about 50% of mothers will accept that recommendation. So 3,000 children a year are born with spina bifida. So what it is, it looked like a tumor, and all of the nerves between those vertebrae along the spine are inside of that tumor.
Wow.
And that's layman's terms. It's not the technical term.
Right.
So we thought that everything was fine. There was no diagnosis. My wife's kind of that granola shield
So
maiden
you didn't
type.
have a diagnosis?
Did not have a diagnosis
birth.
before the day. No.
Wow.
So we've got the midwife and the doula. My wife's in the tub. You know, she's doing the whole crunchy granola childbirth, all natural thing. It's more power to her. And Bree comes out into the world. I deliver her and I pull her out and I look at the midwife and she says, we have a serious problem.
Oh, no.
And my wife didn't hear. She's in that euphoric post-birth state. She's just bringing the baby up onto her chest. And I'm looking at the midwife for answers. And my kids, our daughters are all there in the room too. And they're all looking at my face and like, what's going on, Dad? And I'm looking at the midwife like, I don't know. And I'm like an answer guy. Like, you put me in crisis, we'll figure it out. This was one of the most helpless moments of my life. And the midwife looks at me and says, just enjoy these moments.
Wow.
So
she's saying enjoy this moment right now with
the
your
way
baby.
that I interpreted that was we have moments with our newborn daughter.
Wow. Joe, that, because that's always, it's kind of a question, even for audience might be listening, because I've always been on this fence about this, like in the bathtub birth sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then, but for this reason, right, is that a lot of people, like we had ours, we went to a hospital, right? And I sat on the worst bed ever. And it was terrible for me. I'm just kidding, ladies that are listening.
I'm like,
out
what
there.
are you talking about, bro?
She did all the work. I'm gonna get this later. But I was in the but we did go to the
Feet were in the
hospital,
stirrups
right?
and everything.
Yeah, right. But we went to the hospital, and had our birth of our baby. But there was like medical care there. So what is for somebody that's listening? That moment. Oh my gosh! I could get it. Like, how did you get care?
Yeah.
Right then.
Well, yeah. First of all, there's no right or wrong way to do it.
No, I
My
agree.
wife had our first 2 kids in the hospital, had the epidural, all that stuff, and just decided there's a movie. It's probably on YouTube or something. It's called The Business of Being Born. So if you're on the fence, go watch that movie.
Yeah.
And then draw your own conclusions.
I agree with you.
So I think the conclusion we drew from that was we wanted to experience the natural at-home way. And so what happens, you get a midwife. They typically walk through the whole pregnancy journey with you. You're getting ultrasounds. If there's anything that's concerning, it gets flagged up to the right people. And then usually the local hospital's on call.
Okay.
They know what's going on.
So when this happened, what was that next phase to get? Did you need to have additional care? Did your daughter?
Absolutely.
Like right then? Was it immediate?
Right then.
Was it?
Yeah. So she turned to the doula. And the midwife said, look up different levels of spina bifida. I think we have what's called myomelangial, which is the most severe form.
She knew it right then in the room.
She knew what it was.
Okay.
And so she said, call the ambulance. So I went and I called the ambulance, still not knowing what's going on.
Right.
Spina bifida, myomelangial. I'm Google searching, trying to figure out what this is.
While you just had the birth of your daughter.
Will my daughter survive? That's the type of stuff that I'm Google searching at this point. And my daughters are just weeping in the corner of the bedroom without answers. And my wife's panicking. She's like, we need to take the baby. What's going on? And so fast forward a little bit, we're following the ambulance to Pensacola. We lived over here at the time. We'd made a quick stop to Emerald Coast, and they shipped us down to the Children's Hospital in Pensacola. They have a great team there. We're following the ambulance down I-10, and I just began weeping.
Yeah.
And my wife is like, have faith.
Yeah.
Bree's going to be okay. Like, I said, I believe that. I know that the Lord has our baby girl. She's going to be okay. She's getting the best care in the region. I said, but as much as I know about spina bifida at this point, I realized that Bree's going to have challenging days ahead. And she's battled kidney failure and bladder issues and getting her legs and her feet working. Everything from the affected spinal area down is typically affected. But even in that moment, I'm realizing I'm going to have to be patient. I'm going to have to be, I'm not going to be able to be running at breakneck speed, expecting my family to keep up. I'm going to have to slow down. This is really interesting too. I mean, it's like the people that we're in relationship with, family or otherwise, there's a speed of being known, right? And the pace that we keep determines who can keep pace with us and who we'll be in relationship with. Right. And I've always demanded a lot of my kids and of my family. And I was realizing we're going to have to go from 100 miles an hour to 20.
Yep.
We're going to have to slow way down. And so in that moment in the car with my wife, I said, I realize I'm going to have to die to that version of myself. And I think there's those wake-up calls through our life where we say this version of me has to die if I'm going to be the man I need to be for the season that I'm called to.
I love what you just said. It's this version of my life.
Yeah.
So sometimes what, and maybe you can help me understand this, but it feels like what you're saying is that it's not that, because sometimes I hear die to myself. It's like I need to die to.
What does that even mean?
What does that even mean? Right.
Yeah.
And I love it's this version. So this version of this pace, or maybe it's a version of anger, or it's a version of whatever it is. You're kind of slicing it into areas that need to die. That version. of myself needs to die.
Yeah. Eugene Peterson says there's no such thing as ministry in general. Ministry is always personal. And so we're always, ministry is humble service of others motivated by love. And so if that
Say that again.
ministry means humble service towards others motivated by love.
It's good.
It's not a vocation
That's good.
necessarily.
Yeah.
Right? It's not the 501c3 institution. It's humble service towards others motivated by love. So what is ministry to my family going to require?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, there's a version of me that needs to die, which is 100 mile per hour, Joe.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's real good, man. That's real good.
So practically speaking, Dead Man Manifesto, the origins of this book was really inspired by that experience of realizing I was going to have to be patient. I was going to have to move slower. I was going to have to be understanding. There was different goals and aspirations that I had that as a man in midlife I wanted to hit. These are things I want to accomplish in my life.
Right.
Well, maybe those things need to go on the altar. Maybe not.
Very good, man. That's so good. That is so good. There's so much to uncrack there. I've got you also talk in your book about men needing real brotherhood. And by the way, before we move forward on that question, can we throw up his book since we've been talking about it, maybe we throw a picture of his book up. There it is. So Dead Man Manifesto, 10 Confessions of a Kingdom Leader. So I love it. I love it very. And people can go. Do we have like the Amazon link, or we can throw that up as well? I know she'll get it there. You can even throw up his website or either one.
If you go to deadmanrevival.com, you'll be able to find it. There it is.
What is it? Dead Man Revival?
Deadmanrevival.com is the
we're,
ministry.
We're going to
Yeah.
throw the deadmanrevival.com. There's the website
That's
right
cool.
there. Yeah, so deadmanrevival.com. There's your store, Dead Man Store, so you can go
There it
check
is.
Got some
out,
merch.
Dead Man
Yeah.
Revival.
Yeah.
So,
Merch, yeah.
if you don't mind
for
asking,
sure.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Danielle.
You're flying down I-10, and that's like an inflection point in your life.
Yeah.
Like a Damascus Road kind of thing,
Yes.
right? It's like
Yes.
you didn't go blind, thank God, because you're driving down the road on I-10, right? Some people, I think, are driving blind on I-10.
Yeah.
It's a crazy highway for those out there that don't know. But you knew that moment, that God was speaking to your spirit in a very profound way.
Yeah.
Maybe not an audible voice, or maybe not going blind, but it was that kind of experience
Right.
And I think we all have that as guys at some point, being the birth of a child, be it a death of a close friend, something that says, wow, you got your agenda, but there's a different agenda for your steps. Your steps are ordered.
Yeah.
And I need you to realize I'm going to let you have this moment right now, and you're going to see what's going to, everything you plan, it needs to shift a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a peace about it. Did you have the anxieties leading up to it? But I've had that happen where I feel a peace about it now. Okay, this is the way we're going to go now. So
Yeah.
I think the anxiety came up, and then God's like, I've never heard the voice of God, but I can hear that still small voice. Like, this is real and this is going to happen. All right, I'm listening. I got you.
Yeah.
So I've had that happen a couple times. So it just seems like that's one of those moments.
Yeah, it's interesting that God can use some really anxious moments to get our attention. And then once he has our attention, then the peace can come.
Clarity. Yeah.
Then the clarity comes.
Yeah.
Right? But it's often not the clarity we were expecting.
Not at all.
Right? Like,
yeah.
so it's moments like these, we call them like defining moments. I think that a lot of us like those terms as defining moments.
Yeah.
I think they're invitational moments because it's really the beginning of a process that we're invited into. I was reading this morning, it's Romans 12, 1 and 2. A lot of people will ask questions like, what's my purpose, or what's the will of God for my life? That's a tough question just to throw an answer at. There's no answer in general to that. But when we look at Romans 12, 1 through 2, it says, don't be conformed to this world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Right? Well, how does that work? Well, right before there, Paul says that present yourself as a living sacrifice. This is your act of worship. This comes back to our discussion earlier about grace and works.
Yeah.
Well, what's my work? My work is to present myself as a living sacrifice before God. That's my act of worship. the transforming and the renewing is his work in me. Mm-hmm. So that story of Bree's birth is really about what had to die so that I could lead my family and care for my daughter in the way that they needed to be led and loved. But that's just one example of many instances, many events, many moments that led me into a long-term process. And I think this might be where a lot of us get a little messed up in our Christian walk, is that we want to define our faith by moments and experiences. So we always begin chasing the next experience that will change me for good. And the experience, man, it feels good for a little while, but unless we engage the process that the experience invites us into, we're going to miss the deeper work the Holy Spirit wants to do. So much of what Christ calls us into is this gradual process. And Paul talks about this in Romans 12, 1 and 2. First thing that he says, what has to happen for the transformation? Well, the first thing, he says that we're transformed and renewed, and those are process words. Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Transformed, that word, when you translate the Greek, that's where we get metamorphosis from. Think about a caterpillar, chrysalis, right? It becomes the butterfly, the full potential.
Right.
That word renewed also translates in Greek to almost like a renovation. We're sitting in this amazing flooring and cabinetry showroom, right?
Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful. The renovation process, how crazy would it be if someone walked through the door and said, hey, I love these cabinets. Can you get them in by dinner time? It's not an event.
Right.
It's a process.
It's a process.
Right?
Yeah.
And so how do we engage this process? Well, you back up before the transforming and renewing of the mind happens. Paul says that we present ourselves as a living sacrifice, as our act of worship. So our only work is to surrender. And in that position of surrender, the Holy Spirit does the transforming and the renewing work in our mind, so that, this is that question, how do I know the will of God for my life? Paul says we actually discover it on the back end of the transforming, renewing process, so that you will know the perfect and pleasing will of God for you. Right?
So you will know.
Right. So how do I find the will of God for my life? Let's back up. It starts with the living sacrifice.
So it feels like I'm out of control. I can't control it then. I can't control the process.
Yeah.
And that's probably what stumbles everyone, because I want to be in control.
Guys. Especially
Right?
the guys I know. Not to get off on that tangent, but we try to control so much.
Yeah.
And then we fall short so fast.
Even if you're good at that, Stoicism says control the controllables. Well, in Christianity, what are the controllables?
I mean,
Not much.
Not much.
That's
Not much.
Surrendering.
Not much. I mean, here on this earth in your job, control the controllables. But outside of that, you're right. And as far as our faith,
Yeah.
and you can't control anything. I say it, and I mean, I always tell people sometimes a recovered, and it's not even sometimes, I think a recovered addict is sometimes, in most times, the most healthy person in faith I know. Because they have gotten to a point where it's like they realize I can't control people, places, and things.
Yeah.
And all I can do is keep my side of the street clean.
Right. Right.
And so we walk through life, it's Rick Warren in Saddleback Church out in California came up with a Celebrate Recovery, that he took the 12 steps.
12 steps.
But he said, hey, we all have hurts, habits, and hang-ups.
Right.
And really it was kind of like everybody needs to go through 12 steps. And there's some truth to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that, what are two of the ingredients? There's probably several, right? And in the 12-step program, there's more than two. But if you talk to anyone in recovery, they'll tell you it's impossible without surrender and community.
That's right. That's right.
Probably a good lead into where we're going.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
Segue.
Yeah, it's a great segue. So you talk to men about needing real brotherhood, but let's be honest, most dudes would rather go to a dentist, than a men's group, right?
Yeah.
Why do guys run from community like they're like it owes them money?
Yeah.
I mean, why do we run from it so bad?
Yeah. I know how I want to approach it. I'd love to know what you guys think. How do you see this manifest in the men that you interact with every day? Why do they run?
So I will say I've done a pretty good job of building relationships here now that I'm 48 years old with guys. I don't I have a lot of surface level relationships, but if you're going to be in community with me, we're going to talk about the deep stuff. I'm going to call you and ask you how things are going. I'm going to check in on you, and vice versa. And I want you to hold me accountable as well. I mean, Brandon knows that. Juice knows that. And I reach out to Juice with what's going on, or if I call to Brandon, and they do that with me. And I've got other friends in my life that they know that's how it is. So, but that's taken me a long time to get there. So what I would go, if I went back to myself in my 20s and 30s, I would say it was because that's how I was brought up. Yeah. Nothing was supposed to be wrong. We didn't talk about anything. Right. You bottled up your feelings and you moved on.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
And I think, Joe, to your question, it maybe somewhat of a learned behavior. You know, my dad, my grandpa, they were never in men's groups. When I went to church, you didn't see any grown dudes, or it was just a bunch of kids and ladies that went to our little country church.
Right.
Until I went to a bigger church. But even then you didn't see dudes in church. So I don't know what it is about us, but it's not how it worked.
We just white knuckle our way through problems with God. That's the thing, right? I can remember my dad back in the Southern Baptist Church walking down the aisle and rededicating his life to Christ, right? And it held good for, maybe a week or two, you know? But it's just, but he wasn't in community with folks. Look, and I love my dad and I know he loves Jesus, but I'm just saying and he would probably point, like if he's honest with himself, he goes, you're right.
Yeah.
I didn't actually talk to guys about what I needed to do.
And we talk to anyone in recovery. Can you sustain sobriety in isolation?
No, sir.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's insane to think that you can do it by yourself.
Right. And so we have to let go of the white-knuckled approach. And so in chapter 6 of the book, chapter 6 is a dead man is known, which is, the confession is, I hide nothing, I walk in the light, based out of 1 John. But I like how a lot of what's written in the book is taken from some people who have influenced me who are no longer with us. Two of them are Brendan Manning and Tim Keller.
Yeah.
Brendan Manning wrote the book, The Furious Longing of God. Have you guys ever read that one?
I've not read that one.
Brendan is
I'll try to check it out now.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. He also wrote Ragamuffin Gospel. In The Furious Longing of God, he talks about to know God and to be in relationship with God is to be both known and loved. Tim Keller talks about that in one of his marriage books, that the love of God, the relationship with God, and thus the marriage relationship is about being known and loved together. To be loved but not known is sentimental. To be known but not loved is judgment.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And so I think we oftentimes we hide because we fear being unloved if we're fully known.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is this making sense?
No, 100%. Yeah. No, I agree with this. And I've said this before, and I would have to, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I'd have to find it. I might be able to find it in my phone. I've got to reach down on the floor and pull up my phone because it's worth reading to you. And I've posted it before in my socials. But it was this definition of intimacy, and intimacy. Here it is. I had to
Don't ask me.
I had to phonetically do it, you know. So my wife and I walked into a counselor's office one time, marriage counselor, you know, and this is back in the day when you didn't know if you could go to a marriage counselor and do all that. We needed it. We needed a marriage. We needed to see a marriage counselor. And, of course, I was in the church and heavy into the church and doing stuff. So we made sure that, you know, the safest thing to do is find a marriage counselor that's on the other side of town that nobody knows who you are. Right? Because Christians eat each other. They eat their own. Yeah. So we got to be careful in that, right? So we walked into this couch in this dumpy counseling room, and he had like a frame on his wall, and it was like crocheted, you know. And
I know what you're talking about.
Know, and,
I know what
and
you're
it said about. The definition of intimacy. And I thought, I don't know if we should be here, but then I read this definition of intimacy. It says, intimacy is when I give the other person the very weapons of my destruction. In my case, the knowledge of and the truth about me. Then, after taking the risk to share, the other uses the weapons of my destruction, not to destroy me, but to defend me.
Right. Yeah.
And that's about the best definition I've ever heard of intimacy.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Intimacy is being known and loved, and I love that. That's beautiful. So it was after COVID, and there was a lot of talk about how authenticity, I think it was second only to loyalty programs, but authenticity was the leading defining characteristic of brands that were succeeding in winning consumers over.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to be authentic.
Right.
But when authenticity becomes a marketing strategy, we curate our vulnerability and we end up with something artificial, not authentic. So we can't turn authenticity into a brand. We can't turn it into a marketing strategy. James 5, I talk about this in chapter 6, James 5:16 says, confess your sins to one another so you may be healed.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
But I think that we've lost this art of confession in the church.
Oh, for sure.
And among men today,
sure.
because we love one another without knowing one another,
Yeah.
because we don't have the time.
Yeah, no. Well, do you think it's just time, or is you're worried about judgment, and you're worried about? I mean, the
Absolutely, fear of judgment is what calls hiding.
The biggest one, right?
Yeah, fear of judgment is why we hide. But I think it's no wonder why we see so much sickness being exposed in the church. Man, we've got headlines all over the place about what's going on in CCM, Christian music industry.
Yeah,
right?
Newsboys, Michael
Newsboys. We had another megachurch pastor out in Colorado step down because of being connected to a scandal of another megachurch pastor in Texas. And so we're seeing all of these things being exposed in the heart of cultural Christianity. But I think it's because we are loved but not known. And so it ends up creating this superficial sentimentality where we don't allow ourselves to be known because we're afraid that we'll lose love.
Well, how do we find a safe place to be known? Because see, that's my thing, is that I think sometimes in the church it can be the safest place, but it's not always the safest place, right?
There's so many.
How do you find people that you can then be vulnerable with? Because for me, I feel like it's taken time.
Yeah. I think a lot of what we need to let go of. So I think the American church has done a lot to adopt American consumerism. When we look for a new church, what's the term that we use? We're church shopping. Because we want a children's ministry that's like Nick Jr., and we want a worship band that's like Elevation, right? And we want a TED Talk that inspires me so I can get back into my car and wave at people through the windshield and I go home.
It's a country club for sure.
It can be
got a coffee shop.
club.
You got to have a coffee shop, and it's got to have good donuts.
Yeah. I was funny. We were looking at churches in Colorado when we lived there, and there was a 1-star review on Google. And it was because a church like this should be serving Starbucks, not Folgers.
That's so good. That's so good.
This is a real 1-star review that exists.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
So good.
But what happens is when we adopt this transactional nature in relationships in the church, we come to church expecting to be fed. And what that does is it makes the people who are leading the church purveyors of spiritual goods.
Which is weird because Jesus said it's better to give than to receive.
Yeah.
But we go in all give me, right?
Well, I love that the church is not a restaurant. It's not Ruth's Chris. The church is it's tough. Potluck, man. You bring what you have.
Like I have this love-hate with it, right? Because it's one of those things that I look at the church and I go, look, it is America, and if you're going to be able to bring people in, you might have to have some strobe lights. You might have to have some things that can, because Americans aren't going to just enter the building for a doldrum,
Right.
But then how do you, when you get them hooked, how do you then get them to go deeper? And some churches, I'm sure there's some churches out there that do a great job, right?
Yeah.
But there are others that
the church is going to need
it's got a revival happening, right?
Yeah, the church is going to need to address this because, hey, I didn't make up the saying. I think a megachurch pastor did. What you win people with, you win people to. So we do a great job of attracting.
Yeah, being attractive.
But if the nature of the relationships then is transactional, where we're trying to create novelty-based experiences to keep people in the seats, then you can't be familial and transactional at the same time.
Well, I love what Andy Stanley says, that it's churches are better in circles, not rows. Mm-hmm. Because he's much more like, you can't do that church. You don't really do the church well until you get out of the church and people into a home.
Right.
And you're going through questions and you're talking and you're doing life with folks in a smaller group.
Right.
I mean, that's the only way.
And I've seen this shift since I was a kid in church to these small groups. And I can say, I'm in several men's small groups around here. We keep everything in-house. We don't share anything outside of there. And it has been a very opening process to kind of like, okay, I'm not alone in the same struggles I have, they have. And there's some comfort there. It's not a 12-step thing, but there's something about guys being community with other guys that they can be vulnerable, maybe away from, kids or wives. They can be a little bit more raw with each other. And I've seen that down here. I never was part of a small group like that in the North, but here, being in Florida in the Emerald Coast, I see it a lot.
Yeah.
Men's small groups, not even associated with other churches. Just like, come and join our group. We talk on Tuesday, Wednesdays. But I see that a lot, and it's powerful. It really is.
Well, it is
powerful.
Alan Hirsch says that you cannot disciple a crowd. Right? Discipleship has to come through that vehicle of relationship.
Why is there 12 guys instead of 50 guys?
Yeah.
Why did he only have 12?
Exactly.
That's such a good thing, because I always talk to people and they're kind of like, we and Christians do this a lot, where you're kind of leading in a group and we just make these blanketed statements about somebody because we don't like their actions or what they're doing or whatever else it is. But if you don't like it and you want to actually influence someone's life, you've got to gain agency with them. You can't gain agency with 500 people at one time, right? You gain agency because you've gone to dinner with them. You've gained agency because you've called and checked on them and their kids.
Yeah.
You're loving on them and doing life with them. That's how you gain agency.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think so much of... I was talking to another pastor. It's a really quick story.
No, I love stories.
And... he's saying, look, I want to build a discipling culture. In Matthew 16, Jesus says, I'll build my church. In Matthew 28, he says, you go make disciples. Well, sometimes I think we get really consumed with trying to do Jesus' job for him.
He said, so true, Joe.
He'd build his church.
Yeah.
That's right.
He told us to go make disciples. But I think we like building the institutions with the stage, with the performance, because, look, it's a lot easier to come out. I used to be a worship leader, guitar player. It's a lot easier to memorize 5 songs and come out and do a killer job than it is to get involved with 5 guys who are going through it.
It is.
Yeah.
You're right. Well, and
you're right.
Here's the other thing, because we talk about even creating a safe space. The other thing, though, is that people are messy.
Yeah.
And so when you start doing life with people, you get messy.
Yeah.
And that can be hard. And so it's really easy as a guy to go, I just don't want to do it. Like, his problem, not mine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? But that's not what we're called to do. We're called to be messy.
Right. Right. We have to get involved. And that's, love is involvement.
Yeah.
We have to get involved.
Yeah.
And so, there was another author, Mike Breen, who said, when we actually do our job and we make disciples, we always get the church. But when we try to build the church, we don't always get disciples. And to be a disciple is just to be an apprentice of Jesus.
Yeah, it's not a big thing. You think disciple, and now all of a sudden I've got to get 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread and go start breaking things.
It's to be an apprentice of Jesus' ways. It's to learn how to live like Jesus would live if he were you.
And you're not going to hit perfection here on earth. So every day, in fact, we just had Steve Denton on, and you weren't here for it, but he said he was talking more business, but he said, I said, you just want to do better every day. We're talking about business, and he said he had a colleague that told him he uses the SLED approach, which was suck less every day. So it's almost in our faith, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's just use the SLED approach in our faith and just try to suck less today than you did yesterday, right?
Yeah. This gets practical with things like marriage. When we're dealing with marriage, it's I have all the back porch conversations, with these guys who are like, been married for 19 years, which in today's world is a pretty big accomplishment.
Yeah.
It's like, my folks have been married.
50% of them don't.
Yeah. So it's, how did you do it?
Yeah.
So, well, you have to die. Well, what does that mean? Well, it talks about husbands, live with your wives in an understanding manner so your prayers aren't hindered. It talks about in Ephesians 5, well, guys love to say, hey, wives, you got to submit to your husbands.
Yeah,
I've never used that
But
line.
husbands
don't ever
submit,
use that.
Husbands submit.
If you want to stay married.
What's the verse right before it?
Right. Husbands, love your wives even as Christ loved the church,
that's-
laying down your life for her.
That's exactly right.
Brother, you got to die.
Yeah.
That's exactly
You got to
right.
die to yourself.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, whatever
exactly
version of you is getting in the way of living with her in an understanding
But
way.
there's a. I always tell people too, marriage is, they say it's 50-50. I said, no, it's 100-100. You both got to give.
Yeah, yeah,
You both got to give.
yeah.
And it's super important that, real quick, you were talking about the 1-star Google review. When we did our church in Little 5 Points, our worship pastor, his grandmother came to our church. She was a mayor of a town right outside Atlanta too, but she's older, retired. She came in and loved to see our church and all that. And so she went on to Google and did a review of our church, and she put 1 star. Not knowing what to do. And so it stayed up there and hung around. I finally called our worship pastor over and said, man, is there any way you can go to her house and figure out how to get this 1 star off? She's like, and underneath it was like, it was great. The music was so good. And all this was 1 star.
You're number one.
You're number one.
One is good,
Your
right?
one's good. That's what she
Yeah.
was thinking. Yeah. So one of your confessions is about legacy, and not the kind measured by titles or trophies, but by impact. What does legacy look like for a dead man, and how has that shifted your definition of success?
Yeah, the last 2 chapters in the book, last 2 confessions are about a dead man is generational and a dead man is eternal. And that's where a lot of the legacy talk comes from. But legacy is what outlives you, not what glorifies you. And, when I was younger, I used to think about, I want to live a legacy, so that people remember me for something. And I think it has very little to do with that. David Brooks talks about this in his book. I think it's called The Second Mountain, The Quest for a Moral Life. It's not a faith-based book necessarily. But he says every man in life climbs 2 mountains. The first mountain is the mountain of success, right, which is about my accomplishments. The second mountain, usually around the midlife point or after a crisis, loss of a child, divorce, the business that you built up ends up collapsing, or the success that you built leaves you unfulfilled, which might even be worse.
Yeah.
Right? I have everything that I ever wanted.
Why am I so empty?
Why am I empty? Hear this question all the time. Yeah. So the second mountain is the mountain of significance, right? Which requires surrender, which requires community, which requires death to self. You can tie this to hierarchy of needs. If you're familiar with this? The original hierarchy of needs by Maslow was the pinnacle was self-actualization. I've discovered my purpose.
Yeah.
Later on in life, Maslow said that can't be the pinnacle. The pinnacle is actually transcendence, which is now I exist to help others step into their purpose.
That's it.
As different, even secular authorities have dissected this, they said, who are the examples of transcendent individuals, by the way? And they'll say Mandela and Gandhi, but Jesus is always top of the list. Jesus Christ, transcendent individual. And then they come to the point of agreement where they say, then it is impossible to achieve transcendence without death to self.
Yeah. Very
So
good.
this all comes back, right?
Comes
If we
right
want to live
back, yeah.
significant lives, not just successful lives, if we want to leave a legacy that outlives us, not just that glorifies us, we actually have to die to the idea of I'm going to be glorified because someone else has to be lifted up.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. I mean, I think it's kind of this whole show's purpose here is that we're wanting to bring something to the next generation to a degree,
Yeah.
right? We're old dads.
That's
that
kind of
have
how it
something-
started.
And
this
that's kind of how it
podcast.
started is we want to leave a legacy to the next gen and say that there's things that we've learned along the way and what can we help explore and we're just a $10 podcast. I mean, nobody listens to us, but yeah.
We were having something the other day, and I was just thinking about a recipe. Like, all right, this is my grandmother's recipe, and Crystal's got her grandmother that's passed away, her recipes, and you can remember those memories, and they only go so far. You've been on Earth, and they only go so far. But where did Grandma get those recipes, and where did that person get? And it's just look at a recipe box. That's kind of our life. It's how do we hand the good down to the next? We've tried this, and don't add this much salt because it's not good. We've stood in the road and got ran over by an Escalade. Don't do that. You hand this knowledge,
Right.
keep handing it down. And that's kind of a part of who we are as Christians. We hand the next generation the legacy, what we've learned, and do better than us.
Right.
You don't need
Right.
all the stuff. We've learned this, and now you keep going. So
I think that's like
I
the
think that's
smartest thing
legacy.
you've ever said on this show.
Top 10 for sure. Yeah.
Top 10 for sure. That's going to go into a reel.
Wait. What did I say? What did I say?
Oh man.
Well, I think it, as we become more successful as men, I think there's two plans we should have. We should have a generosity plan, not just a get stuff plan. And we should have a 100-year plan. I started thinking about this when my daughter was in the hospital.
Okay.
I said, okay, I have a 5-year plan. What's my 100-year plan? And I just became obsessed with this.
I'm going to be in heaven.
Well, exactly. And people say, well, you're going to be dead. Exactly.
What's the next person? What's for the next gen?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What would it look like to plan
super smart.
beyond your life?
Yeah.
Super smart. Super smart. All right. So look, let's build a dead man survival starter pack.
Yeah.
All right. A dead man survival starter pack for the average dude. What's in it? I'm picturing like a Bible, an accountability partner, and probably a shovel to bear your ego. Like what are you putting? What are you putting in your starter pack?
I like that. Yeah, the shovel to bury your ego. Yeah, that's in there for sure. Yeah. I think what we think we need. Let's talk about that. I see a lot of faith-based men's groups. Man, 3 days changed my life. Man, I'm glad. And we talk about events versus process, right? Man, this 3-day event changed my life, and I see all the video footage of it's like Navy SEALs for Jesus or something.
Oh, man, come
you know what
on.
I'm talking about?
Yes.
It's like some guy who hasn't worked out in years,
It's like the
and they
worst,
have him like
dog.
maxing out on push-ups, and then they're screaming Bible verses in his face. And
The idea is to completely break them so that
Yeah.
they're pouring into you Jesus, but that is never going to last.
I guess so.
I don't know. I'm probably with you. I don't know what it is
Yeah.
either.
I haven't got that yet.
You haven't seen
that
it?
really
Oh,
yet.
they're
You
all
will
over
now.
the place.
The algorithm
yeah.
will pick up on this.
my
and-
phone is sitting right
You're
here
now
at all.
You're going to see it now.
Yeah, Navy SEAls for Jesus, right?
Okay.
All our audience is going to be watching Navy SEAls for Jesus.
That would be a great show. That's what I don't think that we need. Even me getting back into physical fitness after my daughter was born was realizing that my family was going to need me to be able to move well for years to come.
Sure.
So that's the byproduct effect
Sure.
of having the right priorities in order. I think the survival kit is really simple. I think it's pick a translation of the Bible that's accurate but enjoyable to read. I like New American Standard myself.
Okay.
Something that just helps you process the word in a really.
I'm an NLT guy.
You're an NLT guy,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
That's okay.
But I jump around. I like the New
I'm
American
new old
Standard.
school. I like the New King James.
You're still NK.
That's cool.
NKJV.
That's my grandma on me. That's
if
why-
it's
that's my
accurate and it
grandma.
makes sense to you, pick that one. I think number 2 is go ahead and pick up my book.
What would you say is not an accurate book that people are reading, though?
Not an accurate book.
Not an accurate version that
Of the
people
Bible.
are reading. I feel like if you're on the Bible app, they're pretty much accurate, right? If it's in the Bible app, it's probably pretty accurate.
Maybe
The message version can be interesting. It's if you've ever read the message
I
version.
sure have. Yeah, I
Okay.
think the message gets an unnecessary bad rap.
I do too.
But if you read it with the other one, it's so cool because you can read 2 verses at the same time.
Yeah.
I love that.
It was never meant
It's like
to
boom,
be
boom.
an accurate translation. It was always intended to be a paraphrase
Yep.
to make the truth of God's word accessible
Easier.
to people who struggled with understanding.
Yeah.
So Eugene Peterson, I think that the first book that he wrote out of the Bible in the Message paraphrase was John, because he had a friend who said, I can't wrap my mind around what I'm reading on these pages of the Bible. It's just like I'm going blank. So he wrote John for him. And it was so effective in that friend's life that he just kind
Did
of
the
kept
rest.
going.
Yeah,
Ended up
that's
doing
great.
the rest.
My uncle was commissioned by the guy with Ping that did the Ping clubs or whatever. So my uncle's like has a doctorate in he's head of the doctorate department at Dallas Theological Seminary. But he was part of the people commissioned to write the Net Bible, the New English
Yeah,
translation.
I have that one.
version. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good version. He's got
It is
some stuff.
good.
He did a lot of the Old Testament. That's where his practice is really around the Old Testament. So it's probably like Habakkuk or something like that. Nobody's reading Amos.
There's a couple good ones in there.
There is some
There's
good
some
ones in
there.
Amos.
The
There
Italian
is some good
prophet
stuff.
Malachi, is that?
Yeah, Malachi.
Malachi. Yeah.
That's great. No,
So pick a Bible
Yeah.
that's accessible to you, that helps you understand what God's trying to
that's
speak
great.
to you.
I love it.
Pick up a copy of Dead Man Manifesto. It's
Yeah.
I call it a field guide
Yeah.
for men in midlife.
And again, we threw it up there. We
It's
can throw it again.
yeah.
But it's Amazon. They can go to
It's
Amazon.
on Amazon,
and get it.
yeah. And it's a spiritual formation primer. It was meant to take things that I love. Dallas Willard, 400 pages long, The Divine Conspiracy, great book, but most of my guy friends aren't going to plow through that thing. Yeah. They're not going to lift that.
If somebody was starting and they never read the Bible,
yeah,
what book would you tell them to read first?
Oh, man, this might sound cliche. It's Gospel of John.
That's where I'm at too. I tell everybody start in John
because he knew it was
so
God's
funny
heart.
You say that.
It was God's heart.
It's God's
well,
heart.
and every chapter points to the deity of Jesus. Yeah. Every chapter points to the deity of Jesus.
And I actually love the Message paraphrase in the Gospel of John.
It's so
because
good
it tells us that we know in the NASB I've got sitting here. So the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. It says in the message that God became a man and moved into our neighborhood.
It's so
Isn't that a cool picture of the incarnation?
Same thing, but that is so awesome.
Yeah. Oh.
That makes way more sense.
Yeah.
But you mean he walked the earth with
us.
Yeah.
And he knows everything that we go through.
At 3 miles per hour. He didn't move to 2025.
Yeah.
He didn't even move to the 1900s.
No.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
That's right.
You're exactly right.
You're right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's very good. Well, so for the guy who feels stuck, like he's spiritually flatlined, what's one small thing he can do tomorrow morning that doesn't involve incense, fasting, or quitting his job to become a monk? I mean, what would what is it something that he can do tomorrow?
Yeah, we're being discipled by distraction. Average consumer sees 5,000 ads per day.
Wow.
At least.
Wow.
Okay. Guys like Gary Vee will say, hey, the most valuable commodity in our day and age is attention.
Yeah.
Everyone.
It is kind of.
Everyone is vying for your attention. They're trying to steal it from you.
That's exactly right.
And here's the deal. Number one question I get from guys who want to go deeper in their faith is, how do I hear from God? God will not compete with the loud voices in our culture to tell you what he wants to tell you. So the number one thing I would say for guys who are looking to go that level deeper and you feel stuck is begin practicing attentiveness. Mm-hmm. Whatever that looks like for you. If you got to drive to the state park down the road, I like Blackwater River State Park is down the road from us right now, right? Or the back porch before all the suburban leaf blowers and weed whackers start running. Like, just carve out some time for yourself to get quiet. Simple prayer, maybe read some scripture, just meditate. Don't try to get through a chapter. Meditate on something. Start in Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. All right, Lord, shepherd me.
Yeah.
Pray conversationally. Don't monologue. Maybe you need to say less, but get attentive and pay attention.
That is really good advice. That is really good advice. I like the advice. I like the attentiveness. I think a lot of times be still.
Be still.
Be still.
Just know he's God.
Just know that I'm God.
Yeah.
Right? And that is really good. So I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, and we could continue going on and on and on. What people can find you at deadmanrevival.com. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And it's Dead Man Manifesto is the book.
It is.
Find it on Amazon. They can also find it on your website.
Just go to the website. You'll find everything there.
Deadmanrevival.com. We're going to throw it up there several times throughout this show. It's already thrown up again, but we'll do some more and post edit. There's a spot in your book where you basically admit you were winning at ministry but lost your soul. Mm-hmm. What was your wake-up call for you when you finally broke the kind of fake strong version of you? I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, but
yeah,
what would you say was the final?
So I was a Bible college grad. I went on the mission field. I toured with a Christian band. We had a couple songs on K-Love at one point.
What band?
Climbing that ladder. Oh, it'll remain nameless.
That's a weird name.
It's
a good name actually for a band. I actually kind of like
nameless.
it.
I like that. It probably exists, but
that would hit now.
Kind of
like might hit now.
It's kind of like my high school pictures. They're just kind of scrubbed off the internet.
Trying to find those.
You won't find them. I don't think you will. But the point is, it was like climbing this ladder, right? I was a youth pastor in small country churches, eventually became a spiritual formation pastor at a big 10,000 member church in New York, 5 campuses. And would broadcast on TBN, so preaching on TBN. And 3 things happened very quickly. Number 1, I did an altar call at Easter and 1,000 raised hands went up saying yes to Jesus. Take the next step and learn what it means to follow Jesus. 200 people showed up to the class the following week. And I said, why did you decide to follow Jesus? oh man, I just finished reading Eat, Pray, Love, and this just felt kind of like the next evolution of my spiritual journey. Or, hey, the band, the hair stood up on my forearms and I just like felt God. That's fine. If that's what brought you here, that's cool. But tonight I'm going to scrap everything else I was going to tell you, and I'm going to talk about Jesus as Lord. He's Lord of your politics, your finances, your sexuality, every aspect of your life. Jesus over everything. Do you surrender to Jesus? 40 people came back to the next class out of 200. Of those 40, we began feeding people around tables and having deeper discussion instead of just preaching from the stage. Those people still send me emails and text messages to this day. Many of them are still walking with the Lord. I have no idea what happened to the rest of the 1,000. So this is, you cannot disciple a crowd. Discipleship always happens through relationship, right? So that was the first wake-up call. The second one was I approached 12 new guys to kind of re-upping my discipleship group intensive with 12 guys. And I hand selected these guys. So I approached one guy and he's like, I'm sorry, Joe, no thank you. What do you mean? Like, you're handpicked. You're in Pastor Joe's group.
I picked you, bro.
Pastor Joe?
I chose you.
No, thank
Don't you know?
Yeah. Like, I think I'm like Jesus or something. Like, drop your nets and follow me. Not so much. He says, Joe, no offense, but I've looked at your life. I love you. You're great. But I've looked at your life and the way that you live and how little time you spend with your family. And I've realized that I don't want to imitate the life that you live.
Wow.
That's a wake-up call.
That's a gut punch right there, brother.
You probably need to hear that. Yeah.
Step 3 was I was offered my own church in another city, kind of like a sister church plant, not even a multi-site. It would have been my own thing, own budget, my own staff, everything that you work for. I came home and I delivered the news to my wife, and she said, I have a better idea. How about you take our oldest, I take our youngest, we go our separate ways.
Really?
Wow.
And then she burst into tears. She's like, I don't want our marriage to end. She goes, but when I picture this being my life 5-10 years from now, I think I'd rather not exist.
Jeez.
This is about survival. And I just like looked at the wall. I was like, dumbfounded. But, working 80, 90 hours a week and you're praying prayers like, God, thank you for taking care of my family while I'm building your kingdom. First of all, building the kingdom is a completely flawed concept. Number 2, the first charge to discipleship is in Deuteronomy, raise up your children in the ways of the Lord.
Your first ministry.
That's your first ministry, is your family.
Is your family.
It's your family. My dad puts it this way. My dad was so gentle about it, He would always like put his arm around me, seeing how busy I was, and say, Joe, just remember, your ministry credentials are your family.
That's so good.
So true.
And
that's so good.
I realized I was neglecting my first ministry, even though I was preaching on TBN. So I called a friend. I said, hey, can you find a job for me? It was out in Colorado. We were in New York. I said, yeah, I got something for you. It was a church consulting kind of gig at the time. And I went in and I resigned.
Wow.
And everybody thought I was
crazy.
Like
you're on the pathway to Christian fame.
Yeah. You're climbing you're taking all the steps.
Right.
And I got to go back to my first ministry.
Yeah.
My family.
And you know what? It's the best decision I ever made.
Always the best decision.
Yeah.
Every time.
Family's always number one. I told somebody the other day,
is.
they said, well, what are your priorities? And I said, my family. And they were like, not Jesus first. And I said, well, so I feel like it's kind of hand in hand there, brother. That's
My ministry
It is really my family. And I think that Jesus gets it and knows me and knows what's going on. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's no calling without a caller. And what we're called to is not just a responsibility to do something. It's a responsibility to someone that we're entrusted to lead.
Yeah.
So how in the world could I violate leading my family and not be a steward of that relationship that he's entrusted to me? That'd be an absolute violation of the nature of God and how he is a relational God that knows us and loves us.
I've really enjoyed this conversation with you. I really have.
Yeah,
And
it's been
because what I really love is it just feels like a down to earth faith. It's not something that and I think demystifying, you've said that before, we've got to demystify some things, because in this conversation, if you've come away, and audience members, anybody that's listening out there or watching this online, if you've come away with this and determined that there's some sort of perfection in this recipe here that we've been going through in this Dead Man Manifesto, there is no perfection in this.
That's truth.
It's this idea of just surrender. and then every day just trying to do better, right? Sledding your way through it.
and Justin, if he's leading you, lean into that faith. You don't know what's going to happen. Every day's an adventure.
That's right.
But even when your buildings catch on fire, your horn,
Yeah.
your horn gets
goes
stuck
off in
at
the
the
church
church and it
parking lot.
won't stop. In the moment, I have the best wife. She's like, "It's going to be cool. It's going to be cool." And I'm raging inside.
Oh, I
Like,
can
how do
only
I fix
imagine
it? How do
the
I
hair
fix
on
it? How
your
do I
hands
fix it?
standing up.
And then
Yeah.
I got this helper that all the time, my co-pilot, she's like, "It's going to be good." They can't hear that in church. It's song service.
That's right.
It's like-
So,
anyway.
Joe, we again, great conversations. I've been asking everybody this year on this season, mostly this season, this one last question. Again, great, absolute great talk that we've had with you and again, deadmanrevival.com. Dead Man Manifesto, check it out, and you probably should buy it off your website versus Amazon, if I'm guessing right.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah, right.
As
We
long
it
as you get
everywhere.
it,
Yeah.
As long as you
Get it.
As long as
You're
you get
okay
it.
with it.
It's
Like
okay.
10% more.
Just feels like it's a little bit better straight from your
Yeah,
website.
it'd be like another
So-
70 cents. It's whatever.
But
Get it anywhere.
deadmanrevival.com. But here's my last question. I've been asking pretty much everybody this. What would you tell your 25-year-old self if you could go back into the future? What would you tell your 25-year-old self? Knowing what you know now, what would you tell your 25-year-old self?
Yeah. You're not the main character of the story.
Strong.
I like that one.
That's real good. I love it.
We need to be
It's
putting these
about
up
this
on a
world
board.
ain't about you.
We
Yeah,
need to be
not
putting
about
these
you,
on a
man.
board.
I need that. Like I feel like I
whiteboard.
need a whiteboard.
Yeah.
You're not the
yeah.
main character.
You're not the main
That's
character
so
of the
good.
You're not
story.
the main character. No.
That's so
Even
good.
in your own life. You know?
Even in your own.
Well, Joe, you're a friend. You're an honorary jabroni.
I love
you're a
it.
friend of the
Yeah,
show.
man.
Anytime you want to come on, let us know. I know you've got travels
Love it.
coming up. You're going to this new season. You got a
Yeah.
speaking tour coming on. They can find out where they can see you, where they can hear you. Obviously, they can get your book. All that is at deadmanrevival.com. Correct?
All of that. And if you'd like to bring me in, you can also find the information on booking me there too.
That's perfect. That is such a great way.
Man, it's been so cool
Man,
having you.
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Well,
It's been a wonderful time.
Listen, this is the section I like to say, listen up, kids. So listen up, kids. Big thanks to Joe Courtney for pulling back the curtain and reminding us that the revival that we're looking for doesn't start at church. It starts with a man willing to die to himself. If you felt that, hit us up. And if you're wondering where to start, grab the book, find a brother, and bury the ego. Or don't. I mean, what the hell do I know?
What the hell do I know? I'm just JB, middle-aged dad with ADD. Candid combos, jokes so lame, jabronis pulling a poker face. Just a couple of dudes with ADD.